Love is an industry. Love is a poem. Love is an ocean. Love is
Eat a lot of chocolate.
A person can become great provided that they've read the complete works of Oscar Wilde. Then after doing that,
just a good woman, you know, somebody you're going to connect with, somebody you feel that you can create the entire life with.
Prepare for death.
I like to think that God created us because I don't know why God created us. I don't know.
Somebody invented football. There's probably like one guy that invented football. Look how great that is. That changed the world.
Whenever I go to the ocean and I see the water and it doesn't end, I realize it makes me feel the whole world is actually connected.
Hell, wow. Not a place I want to be.
Heaven? A nice, hot, beautiful beach.
Enjoyment. We want satisfaction.
I'm afraid of spiders.
Deep, dark waters.
A killer or monster is living underneath my bed.
I'm afraid of being murdered. I'm afraid of being burgled. I'm afraid of being shouted at.
You can't get everything you want.
I prayed for children, and thank God I have 2 beautiful little girls.
This life's amazing.
What do you tell people who don't know anything about Judaism? What is an introduction to Judaism? Well, the first thing that you got to tell them is the 5 letters of the alphabet. You know, you got to learn the alphabet before you learn a language. You got to get the certain fundamentals before you can teach them what Judaism is about. So the A of Judaism, the very A of Judaism is, how do we know when somebody's telling us the truth or they're telling us baloney? You know, societies all over the world are brainwashing their people. You know, if we were born in China, we'd be communists. If we were born in Italy, we'd be Catholics. If we were born in Iran, we'd be Khomeini fans. And if we were born in India, holy cows, you know. And then everybody else is talking to you, like the communists want you to be a communist, and the Mormons a Mormon, and everybody's selling you a bill of goods. How do you know when somebody's telling you the truth, for goodness sake? How do you tell the difference?
I think if you look into somebody's eyes, I think you can tell if he's telling you the truth or not.
Body language says a lot. You know, some people are just really good at feeling things out.
I know if someone's telling me the truth when I look into their eyes and I see that there's good intention, and I use my logic to work out if it's true.
I learned that people are not always what they seem.
You don't always know that when someone's telling you the truth. There are a lot of really good liars in the world.
Well, they've tried like lie detector tests, but they apparently don't 100% work.
How do you know someone is telling the truth? You just have to trust them and hope that they really are telling you the truth.
You know, track record of that person telling you something. If it's a person that you trust, just using his track record, you know that it's true. You know, if he's never let you down before, why should he let you down now?
You know someone's telling you the truth is if they're a person of truthful manner, a person you respect, and they seem to have no reason to not want to tell you the truth.
Everybody's selling you a bill of goods. How do you know when somebody's telling you the truth, for goodness sake? How do you tell the difference? So this is so fundamental that we teach it to our children before they're 3 years old. How do you teach children before they're 3 years old? Well, the only way you can teach, you can't talk a philosophical discussion with a 3-year-old, but what you do is you tell them a story. And that story, you hope, will put a building block into their mentality that they'll be using the rest of their lives. Now, you know stories that are told to children from the Western world, the Western consciousness story. So I'm sure all of you have heard of Little Red Riding Hood. Little Red Riding Hood is a story that if you ask somebody, did you have, of course they heard of it. Otherwise, you ask them, where were you born? If somebody doesn't know Little Red Riding Hood, so you say, where were you born? He was born in Russia. Oh, so you say, well, it's the story of a little girl with her grandmother and a wolf, and then he recognizes it, but everybody's heard it. So we, the Jewish people, we had stories that were called Jewish consciousness stories. And one of them goes like this: when we were in our mother's womb, the Almighty sent an angel. And that angel sat with us while we were being formed. And he taught us everything there is to know about creation. And you understand an angel, their reputation is they get the job done. You might be a poor student around here, but in your mother's womb, that angel, he does the job. And you know it letter perfect from A to Z. Then just before you're born, the same angel, he touches you under the nose, ding, and you forget it all. All that work, one touch, and you forget it all. Now these stories, you see, carry an impact. You've heard the story of Little Red Riding Hood when you were young. Imagine bring yourself back when you were 3 years old. You hear the story of Little Red Riding Hood. I mean, you believe these stories, right? And then there's a knock on the door, and you say, come in, and in walks a guy from Borneo. You say, come in, and in walks your grandmother. Now what do you react? Ma. You hide behind your mother's skirts and you say, Ma, check out her teeth. After all, you heard about the wolf, you know. This might be the wolf coming to eat you, yeah?
I learned from Red Riding Hood that you always need to be suspect of people and always have spare food on the way.
I learned not to talk to strangers.
Not to trust something with big gangrene teeth.
I don't know, I don't think I ever really liked that story so much. It's kind of a sad story. I always sort of felt bad for the wolf.
12-year-olds don't belong in the forest.
There are going to be times when old relatives come and try to give you a kiss. Run. Run.
So really you're teaching your children, you're planting in your kids, you can't trust anyone. Even your own grandmother can kill you. I don't know if you want to teach those kids, but that's what's being done. Now imagine you're 3 years old and you hear the story of the angel, and he taught you all of wisdom when you were in your mother's womb. And then there's a knock on the door and you say, come in. And then walks a guy straight from Borneo, you know, the headhunters. He's got a spear in his hand and file down teeth, and he's got a human bone stuck through his nose. And what an apparition. And you spy underneath that bone is that same indentation. And you say, Ma, an angel taught that critter what he taught me? So what is it that you're teaching them? What we're teaching them is, what we're planting is that every human being knows everything. So what do you got to do? Check it out. You know the truth. Somebody's yapping at you, check it out. You know the truth. Somebody's yapping at you, just check it out. You know everything. You see, that's why it's right under your nose, you know. Because if somebody says you got to go to Tibet to find the truth, you tell them, baloney, man. It's right under my nose. I just got to get in touch with what I know. And how do you get in touch? You put your finger here, stop talking, stop yapping, and start thinking. So everybody is able to know the truth.
I think you have a gut feeling if something is true, you just feel it.
I know that something's true when I feel it sits right with me.
I think the only truth can actually be found in death, and once you're dead, I think anything you ever want to know will be answered, whether it's in another spiritual realm or, you know, if there's actually nothing, then there's nothing, and that's the truth right there.
How do I know something is true? It's just a feeling you get in the situation, like an intuition.
You know, you can feel it right in your gut.
I know something's true when it feels good.
So how do you check it out? Well, that's something you got to learn, but you check this out whether it checks out. Yeah. So how do you check it out? You get in touch with what you know. Get in touch with what you remember, so to speak. So the first thing you got to check out, did the religion say this? Is this Judaism or is this what somebody's telling you? So what do you know about Judaism? That's the way you check it out. What do you know about Judaism? Well, you've heard the expression, our Father in heaven. You know the expression, our Father? Yeah, expression of Father in heaven. Okay, so now what do you know about being a father? Everybody knows. The angel taught us. So if you had a son 20 years old, and you told your son, I want you to take a running jump head first into that wall. And his son says, okay, Dad, off he goes, he runs, and he jumps head first into the wall, and he's unconscious on the floor. How do you feel? What do they do to the poor kid? He's an idiot, yeah? If he turns to you and he says, Dad, that's a wonderful idea, but I don't quite understand how to do it. Would you mind illustrating? You say, boy, that's a smart kid. So we want our children, every human being wants his children to listen to him, but to check it out. And of course to agree, because we're always telling them the truth. But we don't want them to be little Lord Fauntleroys, just be robots. We want them to be independent. Check it out.
I like my children to learn from my experience. That's the one side of the DJ deck, and from their own experience. And they're going to mix the tracks. They're going to mix it.
I think they should learn a little bit from us, and they should also check it out themselves.
I'd like my children to be inquisitive and ask questions, but on certain issues I'd like them to trust me and not make the same mistakes that I did.
I'd like them to know what I think, but I think that they should explore some of these things for themselves and learn them, because that's the best way to do it.
If I'm going to tell my kids, don't stab yourself in the leg with a knife, it hurts, I don't want them to try it out.
Children have to make their own mistakes in life in order to learn by them. All you can be there to do as a parent is to say, I told you so.
Children are probably better directed than like informed. That's just to let them find for themselves. That's the best way to learn. Kind of point them in the right direction.
Some of the things that I've done, I definitely would not want my kids to do. So I would like them to learn some things by themselves, but I definitely make sure they're only doing some and not other things.
Okay, so the religion tells us our Father in heaven wants us to be independent, to check it out. How do we know it's true? How do we know that this is the truth? So tell me, every one of us has had an argument. Someone had an argument today, maybe it was last week, maybe the week before, but you remember, if you could remember back when you had an argument. Think back, remember, you're arguing with this guy. Couldn't you swear, when you're having an argument, couldn't you swear that if the other guy would only keep quiet for a little while and listen carefully to what you had to say and think about it for a moment, he'd of course agree with you. Otherwise, what are you arguing about? If you're arguing, you're trying to convince someone. That means you believe if he listens and he checks it out, he'll agree with you. This is universal. Everybody's trying to convince the other guy because they think if they listen, of course, they'll agree because they're telling them the truth. So this is something the angel taught all of us. We can check it out and know the truth. It's inborn. So what's the B of Judaism? So the second thing you got to understand about Judaism is, what are we living for? I mean, that's something you should be able to check out. What are the Almighty creators? What are we supposed to do? We got 70 years in this world. If you got 15 to grow up, 13 to grow up, 20 to grow up, certainly you should grow up by the time you're 35. Yeah? Okay. Now, what are you living for? What's life really about? The real stuff. Bottom line. What do you want to accomplish? Isn't that the essence? Now that you can check it out, shouldn't you check this out? What are you living for?
What am I living for? You know what? I don't know yet.
I'm living for... It's a problem. I don't really know, I think.
I live for purity, harmony, clarity, and a lot of other big adjectives.
In the most part, I'm living for my children.
I'm living here for, I guess, my children.
I'm living just to have a good time, hopefully learn a thing or two here, and really just look back on my life and say, wow, there's a couple of interesting things around.
So Judaism says one thing: pleasure. It's a shocker, huh? Pleasure. But what do you mean by that? Just what I said, man. The Almighty is our creator, and we know, every human being knows, the whole world knows, even a Jewish atheist knows, there's nothing you can do for your creator. Nothing you can do for your creator. What can we give God? An atheist will tell you, what do you think, God needs your kosher or he needs your Shabbos?
Is there anything that we can do for our creator? I mean, What does he need to do? What does he need to have us do?
There's nothing that we can do that he needs.
Is there anything that anyone can do for their creator? Not that I can think of.
We taught the world, the almighty creator of this universe, created time, space, energy, and matter. There's nothing you can do for your creator. Then what did he create us for? To give us this wonderful world as a gift. For what? For our pleasure. That's what it's for. All right, so that's what Judaism says, yeah? How do you know it's correct? How do you know that this is true? So, my friends, you see this? You get it? It's a pen. What's it made for? Everybody knows. To write. Well, maybe it's a radio, you know? You say, yeah, a radio? How does it work? If it doesn't work, it's not a radio. What it does is a pen. The design proves the purpose. So, you know, I'm one gadget on this screen, yeah? Look around you. You see other gadgets like me? You know what we do all day long? You got up in the morning. The reason you got out of bed is you made a decision. You have a better chance of getting pleasure out of bed than in bed. Otherwise, you'd still be hugging your pillow. So, if there's 6 billion human beings in this world, we're all pleasure seekers. That's the way the Almighty made us. If He knew what He was doing, that's what He created us to do. Seek pleasure. Well, then what's wrong? Why doesn't everybody have pleasure? Oh, you see, that's the sea of Judaism. The sea of Judaism is, how come if the Almighty created us for pleasure, and everybody is looking for pleasure, and we're fighting for pleasure, and all we want is pleasure, yeah? How come there's so little of it around? So many people are miserable. So many people are suffering. Where did the pleasure disappear to?
Maybe they're not looking for pleasure in the right places.
Maybe they don't really know what pleasure is.
Different things make different people happy, and just need to find the right thing for yourself.
There's so many unhappy people in the world because they seek pleasure, small pleasure, and they never feel fulfilled.
So in Judaism we say, the Torah teaches us, chet. The translator says sin. That's not a Jewish word. Chet is the generic term of all the mistakes we make, all of them, like knowingly, by eating too much, by getting angry, all the mistakes. On Yom Kippur we say, al-chet shechatanu l'fnecha, al-chet, al-chet, al-chet. That's the generic term. And chet literally means lachti et hamatara, to miss your target. See, we human beings are very prone to make mistakes. We all want pleasure. We're looking for pleasure. And we come up with cans of worms, with drugs, and with anger, and with revenge and hate. And it's counterproductive, but we're looking for pleasure. We make mistakes. Now, if you ask somebody, check it out, you tell him you're a sinner, he says, the heck with you. You say, hey, have you ever made a mistake in your life? Boy, we all know we make mistakes. We all make mistakes. So what is the biggest mistake we make?
The biggest mistake one can make is not learning from one's mistakes.
The biggest mistake of my life was to get into an argument with my friends, and it didn't end up good.
My biggest mistake in my life, I don't know. I've made so many mistakes in my life. I couldn't possibly pick one. It'd take too long.
My life's greatest mistake would probably have to be not living every second to its fullest.
I think the biggest mistake I ever made was starting to drink alcohol too young.
Being a great patron of South American narcotic products was possibly the biggest mistake I made in my life.
That's the key of Judaism. The Jewish people in our religion, we're famous, and you can look around, we say educate or perish. It's only in the Jewish religion that you have people who are 70 years old who study every night. But you have people who are doctors, lawyers, Indian chiefs. Every night they're studying the Torah. What are they looking for? What's your pleasure? The biggest mistake a human being can make is he's going out to get pleasure. He doesn't even know what the heck his pleasure is. Go and get pleasure. If you decided right now, I want to be a really religious Jew, an observant Jew. I really want to go about it. So now I'm going to get pleasure. Get me the ice cream, get me the steaks, get me... You're going to be pigged out, sick, for a whole week. You know? You made a mistake. What was your mistake? You didn't figure out how to get pleasure, and what is your pleasure, and how to go about maximizing your pleasure, and how to go about avoiding your mistakes. Yeah? So the most important thing that a human being can do is find out what is his pleasure.
I think what gives me the most pleasure in life is to watch my girls growing up and being happy.
Gives me the most pleasure in life. The company of good friends.
My family gives me the greatest pleasure in life, being with my family and my husband and my friends, and being with people that love me.
So going back to that love thing, I think that's a major factor. Loving what I do, loving people who love me back. It's all about love, baby, love.
Vacations, other people's company sometimes, good sandwich, you know, all kinds of stuff, you know. It's got a lot to do with the situation, you know.
Making other people happy, but in the sense of if I can help a friend and be able to be there for him, that gives me the most happiness.
What's the E of Judaism? The E of Judaism is just the final understanding, you see, that that's all the Almighty came to teach us. You know that you want to teach your children how to avoid mistakes. If they fight with their brothers, you want to tell them, look, you got to love your brother. It'll be much better the rest of your life. Be at peace with your brother. If they don't want to learn how to read and write, you tell them, but in the end, reading and writing will be your pleasure. And we try to teach them, brush your teeth, it's for their pleasure. Everything that we teach them to do and to avoid doing is we're trying to teach them how to get pleasure. If the Almighty gave us a Torah, you know what it is? Literally, Torat Chaim means instructions for living, wisdom, how to get pleasure, but man, heavy pleasure. Not what you think is pleasure. How not to make mistakes, how to maximize what you have, and how to live the best life you possibly can.
The Bible is some Greek definition of an ancient Hebrew text. It's a book of ancient traditions.
It's a book about people who lived a couple of thousand years ago.
The 5 books of Moshe with the oral law, as well as the Kabbalah, Jewish mysticism. But I mean that's the physical Torah. The Torah is also a spiritual thing. Learning from it, doing things from the Torah.
I believe it's definitely God's way of communicating with the world. I think it's a very ancient wisdom that can really enhance and enrich your life. I think that it's a force. It's a force in this world that can be used in a very powerful way, and connecting to it is what a lot of us are trying to do.
If you have any questions or any comments, anything at all, we're interested. Please call.